record would be really helpful for people that can't make it today. And so, Tracy, I am now going to give you up to 10 minutes for you to just share with everybody here today what it is you want some support with. I'd say no more than that. Over to you.
Okay. First of all, I didn't prepare anything because I thought I would let Jill just guide me along. So for those of you that know me, most of you do, I started my business with the idea that I'm going to change the world and help people, figure themselves out. And I was very aware that I didn't want to exclude people that might want to come to me. So I had this huge net that I was trying to fish with. But gradually now, after all this time, I've realized that people need to know exactly what you do. Because if they don't know exactly what you do, they're unsure if you're going to be able to help them. And I've learned this obviously through SWIB. So in this lockdown, I've really realized that I need to focus on my niche, which I think is I'm really good with teenagers and family dynamic relationships. Because that's my background. I didn't have a happy family life when I was young. And, I've been through a divorce, and all that has given me all this insight and understanding. So I've now realized that by having a niche, I don't know why I ignored all the people telling me this all along, but now I've realized that my niche is this. And by having a niche, I'm not excluding other people. That people will still come to me for other problems if they have other problems, but I need to market myself as my niche. The problem I have is that the teenagers that I help can't pay me. So I need to work through the parents. So I need to have a double marketing strategy so that with the stuff that I put out there actually speaks to the parents and the teenagers, so that if the teenagers pick up, okay, I think I need to find help, they could go to their parents, or if the parents hear what I'm saying, they will say, yes, she needs to help my child, or our family life is being affected by this, so we need to go and find help. So I started with this funnel thing that we learned about, creating a funnel, putting information out there, creating the know, like, trust that we've been taught on, which I've been really busy with in my social media, Instagram, Facebook, Instagram to get the kids involved, Facebook to get the parents involved, because the age group that's on those two platforms. I've really neglected my LinkedIn, which I'm planning to get sorted, because they are all parents, aren't they? And I've started with my podcast. So gradually, I think I'm getting there. But I would like some advice on, I think most of you are all parents, on, because I have to think of the avatar that I'm talking to, the person that's listening. And I need to think of the ideas on how to put my message out there, what problems you mothers and parents face with teenagers. And if you could think back to your own teenage years, how you felt as a teenager, and what do you think I should do more than what I'm already doing. I'm very happy to say that I did get my second Instagram client after all this time, only my second. And I've had somebody which I've met through other networking, but from Facebook and from my podcast, I've had one each. So I know it's working. It's a slow process, but I'd like to have your insights and feedback on, yes, we like your podcast, we don't like what you do here, just a bit of feedback, because, we're all working and speaking into the abyss. and it's very difficult. You say to people, leave reviews, leave comments. Nobody does. So you don't really know what people like, what they don't like. So that's what I would really like help with.
Super. Thanks, Tracy. Okay, so as I said at the start, the first thing we're going to do is just take it in turns to ask Tracy any supplementary questions to get a better understanding of what the issue is. If you don't have any, please don't worry. Just, if you're off and you've got nothing extra to add, just shake your head and we can move on. Bev, have you got anything you'd like to ask Tracy?
Yeah, I just would like some clarification on the teenagers. In terms of, are we talking troubled teenagers who have real sort of angst with parents and family dynamics, or is it just that thing we all go through with our teenagers?
I think that's a very sensitive point, because you don't want to label people as troubled. So I'm just saying teenage issues, things that teenagers deal with or find hard to cope with. I don't, or parents with teenagers that see their teenage coping is not really coping very well. Because I think a lot of teenagers, they get stuck in this idea of, I'm depressed. It's a very comfortable place to be, and they don't want to get themselves out of it. Because it's very comfortable to just say, I'm a teenager, I'm depressed, and I hate myself, I hate my life. But, it's basically just teenagers that aren't coping, that feel that they're not coping.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bev. Annette, anything you want to ask?
So Tracy, do you follow other people who do something similar to you on social media?
I'm really good at doing that type of research.
But do you follow them, and do you, what I meant was it,
I follow them on my personal page.
And do you interact with them?
I do interact. I've only just started following some groups, because unfortunately the thing about the groups that I'm interested in, it is very depressing to follow anxiety groups and teenage parents that are battling, because everybody's in a bad space. So I don't stay on there a lot. I dip in and out, and I offer a bit of advice here and there, but it's quite a depressing place to be, is these groups.
So that was quite so specific about what you do, but do you, or are you actually also a member of groups that are mums with teenagers or mums with millennials?
Yes, I am in those groups, and I'm quite active in there as sharing my own problems, one, so that they not just think I'm trying to stuff stuff down their throat. I share my own problems, or without oversharing, because if they come to me, I don't want to make myself too overshared. And I also offer advice. But yes, I do, and I follow in my own personal page on Instagram, for instance, a lot of teen therapists, so I can see what they're up to, what they're sharing, and so on.
Okay. All right, Annette.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, have you got any clarification that you need?
Yeah, just so I understand, Tracy, are you ultimately looking for ideas for content to share, or are you looking for ideas that will attract people?
Yes, the second one.
The second one, so ideas that would attract people.
Yes, because content, oh my gosh, there's too much content. I've now, just to tell you, I've now got this very a strategy together, which I've been working on, where everything's going to be interlinked like a huge big net. I told Jill about it. So my podcast, my blog, my Instagram, my Facebook, and my LinkedIn is all going to be on the same subject. And I'm going to not look like I'm vomiting information, if you know what I mean. I want to look like, oh yes, she's this week, let's learn about imposter syndrome. So I get a visitor on my podcast to talk about it. I share stuff about it. I do a blog about it. Everything's going to kind of sync in together. So that's my strategy. So I know what my content is. I just want to know, as a parent and as a teenager, what do you think they want to hear?
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Emily, have you got anything you want to clarity on?
I didn't have until you just said what you said, Tracy. My understanding was you wanted to, you just said you wanted help with what we thought they wanted to hear. But I thought you wanted, my first understanding was you wanted help with how to reach these people.
Well, that's the same thing, actually.
Well, that's what I'm questioning, yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's about your avatar and what's going on in their head, which a lot of the time I know, but that's my perspective. So I thought it would be interesting to get the perspective of other people on how you think you would approach, well, in what situation you think you would find yourself in, and what would help you to reach out.
Okay. Well, we can come to that anyway in the suggestions. Is that all right? Yeah, that's okay for Emily. Then, Paula, anything you want to ask for clarity?
No, there's actually not much. The only thing is, I think it's maybe an idea to listen within it, because you're a parent too. What is it what you would look out for? Did you ask yourself that question?
Yes, I have. But like I say, I'm doing everything from my perspective and the problems that I face. You know, I'm very lucky, for instance, that I don't have kids that are abusive and shout and swear at me, but I've got other problems. So, you know, it's everybody's kids are different.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting a little bit into suggestions, so that's fine. Thanks, Paula. Werner, I'm not sure if you're there. If you've got any questions, can you unmute yourself? We're talking about questions around clarity. I think the builders must be making a bit of a noise, so I'm going to move on to Anne. Any clarity questions, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about teens and parents, Tracy, so I totally get that. Given that we're in, I think, the third lockdown, I just wondered if you're in contact with any schools or authorities like that. Schools, villages.
Unfortunately, with the schools and the authorities, they are very driven by regulations. So they only focus on CAMS for the school kids, and they've got their internal school counselors, and they're not allowed to recommend any external people. What I do, I don't know if this is right, Jill, if I should say what I do, but what I do is I do tag, for instance, Mind, CAMS, and so on in my posts, so that, and I've had a newspaper interview with a lady from Mind, and they've approached me and said that they love what I'm doing with teenagers when I still ran when I could still run the Fearlessly You group, which I ran for the teenage girls. So I'm trying to create that relationship with them, but unfortunately, the schools is not a place to go. That's why I need to approach them externally.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The only other question I had was about, are you doing any polling?
For the first time, I did a poll for my new podcast, which I did a poll, just an easy one, on self-limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome. I put it on Facebook and on Instagram, and I got quite a lot of response on those 2 polls. So yes, thanks. I have tried that, and it really works.
Okay, that's cool. We can come back to that then, can't we? Super, thanks, Anne. I don't think I've got anything in terms of clarity, Tracy. So we've asked all our questions. Is there anything else that you want to say in terms of laying out your stall about what you're looking for that you don't think you've covered and that's prompted for you?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay, that's fine. So ladies, the next stage then, I'm very clear about this. This is not a dialogue with Tracy. So Tracy, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself. This is the hard bit, because for you, from your perspective, there might well be things people say to you, suggest to you that you've tried. But as I've said at the very start, these sorts of sessions, it's really important not to get into that two-way thing. If there's something that somebody says to you that really sparks something, then yeah, later on you can have an offline conversation with them. And that would be really helpful, of course. But this is more about us having a little bit of time to think about suggestions for you. And ladies, if somebody said your suggestion, the one that you've been saving up, don't worry about it. That's absolutely fine. Particularly if you haven't done this sort of thing before on a regular basis, it sometimes can be a little bit weird, but we all know Tracy well, and I know we all want to help her. So I'm going to go back round the room, and I'll stay in the same order because it makes it easier. And Bev, I'm coming to you first for your hints, tips and advice for Tracy as gifts. And Tracy, you've got to do a lot of writing here, mate.
Firstly, I think, Tracy, you have 3 audiences, not 2. I think you have parents, I think you have the teenagers, but then I also think you have those outside organisations and charities and youth clubs and those people that meet with these families on a regular basis. So in terms of awareness raising and visibility, I think you've got 3 audiences. I think to reach the teenagers, you've got to start thinking about things like TikTok. You've got to look at the new social medias that are coming out. They're not on Facebook and they're not on Instagram. The stats show that actually Instagram are usually 25 upwards. So I think you need to do a bit more research on where these teenagers are. And then it's about the language you use with teenagers, because this is my experience, I'm going to put out there because I've got a grandson and a family all mixed up with social services. And yes, they need family help, but the son doesn't believe it. If you talk to him about anything to do with, it's not working and it's not his fault, it's everybody else's fault. And he would never in a million years understand language like imposter syndrome or anything like that. So I think it's finding that language that teenagers really get in a really simple way that doesn't make them think they're standing out from other people. Because I think one of the big issues with teenagers, and I think we all went through this as teenagers, you've got to be in the crowd and you can't stand out and you can't be different, you've got to be the same. So I think just thinking about that language and that information going out in really short, sharp bursts that they grasp really quickly, that maybe they can laugh about a bit, but actually it's sinking in. So they can do it almost, it's not like they're being preached at. I think that's a challenge for you. I think it's a challenge for anyone, because it's a challenge for parents and themselves. But I think that's where you need to just break up those audiences. So the message that you're giving out is the same. It's just that language and the way it's put out, because I suspect if a teenager was attracted to what you do and went to his parents and said, look, I think this lady can help me, they're going to go, well, if they're helping you, they're going to help us. So that's great. So I think, but it's much more difficult for a parent to go to a teenager. I found a lady who's really going to help you, because my grandson walks out of the room every time a social worker comes in and says, we need to talk and you need it. He walks out the room and the parents say it. So I just think that's my offering to you to just think about. That's your challenge.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bev. Annette, anything you would like to contribute to the conversation?
Yeah, so I was thinking similar to Bev, but slightly about how you target, how you get your message right on the right platform for the audiences. And I hadn't thought it through as much as Bev, because I don't The only experience I have of being as teenagers is myself and my goddaughter, and one or two other friends, parents and friends. So, but I was thinking, yes, what is the right platform to actually contact them, to actually get the message over, and so that might be very different for the parent. It's a different type of message. Is my gut feeling than you would be for teenagers. So it is about helping the teenagers, but it's about helping the parents. So the two sides of one problem, perhaps. And yes, it's about the conversations around that. And I was thinking in terms of the polling, which I'm glad that you're doing, is perhaps trying something about the questions. So ask me anything on Instagram, because I know that what you're dealing with are sensitive things, but if you're asking open questions to people, you can then connect with them and take more detailed conversations around that. And thirdly, really is about, how, and I don't have any answers for this, about how you can extend that collaboration in terms of, for example, you were focusing on girls. Is there anybody out there that focused on, can you do any online collaborations with anybody? So that was my addition.
Okay, fab. Thanks, Annette. That's great. Jo.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've come at this the right way or the wrong way. So from what you were talking about, ideas of how to attract, I don't know if you have done one or you haven't done one, Tracy, or if you even are aware of them. And you probably have your on Facebook. Lead magnets is something I kind of wanted to talk about first of all, because you talk about getting people in rather than people coming to you and looking at your stuff. A lead magnet you can use. Can you just give me a yay or a nay if you know what it is? You don't? Okay. So it might be something on Facebook that you would post that would be, I don't know, 10 signs as a parent what you are looking for to recognise an unhappy teenager or something like that. And they'd click on your learn more button and they'd take a little quiz. Does your teenager lock themselves in their bedroom? Do they refuse to talk to you? Are they off their food? I don't know, because I don't know what these signs would be. But the idea is that the quiz would lead to them saying, yes, I recognise that. Yes, I recognise that. Yes, I recognise that. Yes, I recognise that. And now I want to learn more. So they've clicked through to your website. But what they have to do if they don't click through to your website is they have to, before they take the quiz, they have to give you an email address. So then they become part of your email campaign. And then you can start to use your content to directly send them to them. So you can talk to me about it offline if that, I'm not an expert in lead magnets at all, but I understand the concept and how they work. So that could help from you can obviously do that on Facebook for your parents. I don't understand TikTok well enough. I love watching it, but I don't understand well enough as if you could do it to get the kids involved in it. How you would do that in like 30 seconds or whatever you've got. It might just be, do you recognize this, this, and this? Follow me to find out more. And then you could do it on another part of a platform. So that would be the first thing, but I would make sure that some of your content is around these giveaways, not just podcasts and things, but signs. So as I said, 20 signs that as a parent you should be looking for, or as a teenager, 20 signs you may recognize. So people can start to really, in really quick, succinct chunks, say, oh my God, that's me. How do I find more? How do I engage with this woman more? That's really made my head think, I want to reach out more and I want to find out more. And then from the other side, I was trying to think, God, how did I feel like as a teenager that might help you? And I can't remember back that far. It was over 40 years ago, so that was a struggle. But then I look at my two teenage nieces. When I call them teenagers, they're 16 and 18, but they are not, they're a million miles away from being adults. So I still consider them to be teenagers. So first of all, have you ever had any case studies that you could work on? Because I'm sure I could hook you up with Megan, who's quite a troublesome soul, who posts continuously on Facebook, dark, mysterious shit that makes me go, makes my mum freak out even more. And then secondly, I was trying to give you some ideas. So why do I feel like I want to cry all the time? That was something that was resonated with me when I was a teenager. I couldn't tell you why, but I just wanted to cry, and I never got depressed, but moods periodically, obviously, those things would make me click on something if I was feeling in that space. Why does nobody understand how I feel? Because when you're in that space, no one gets it. You think no one gets it. So that would make me click. I don't want to talk to anyone about it. Another thing, another emotion that I wouldn't want to speak to you, but you might entice me to just click on something else to see why you think the same way that I do. There's definitely a bit for social media self-destruction on, yes, I see my niece post shit all the time and then sit there and wait for the likes to come through. And then when they don't come through, that is really destructive. So there's a real piece around that. Not that they recognize it, but maybe that would make people kind of click. My mum thinks she went through the same stuff as maybe she doesn't, it's different. That would be another thing. And equally, my dad just shouts at me when I cry and that really doesn't help. And this is all from a girl's perspective. I'm really sorry. I've got a boy and I'm going to go through loads of shit. I'm sure sometimes you're at that point. But I'm only kind of trying to help you as a female who didn't really fight with many emotions. But I see that in my nieces now. With a dad who can't cope with their emotions because he lives in a house full of 3 women and a niece that just drinks because she can't cope with her own emotions as well. So hopefully some of that helps.
Brilliant. Sounds great to me, Jo. Thanks a lot. Super. Emily, anything you'd like to add in terms of advice and tips?
Well, I'm very interested in it all, Tracy, because actually the teenage sort of people are the ones that I'm most interested in with hypnotherapy and stuff as well. And I agree with you about schools. Getting into schools is almost impossible, but I don't think completely impossible. I mean, I have 3 children, but 2 of them are teenage girls. The eldest has been a nightmare since she was 9, as far as teenage girl issue, you know, just so outrageous and off the wall. That's been hard to cope with. But the middle one was the one that we were more worried about, because she just really didn't cope with exams. She's 17 now, should be doing her A-levels this year, but obviously won't be. But when it came to GCSEs, I tore my hair out. That's actually what got me to train as a hypnotherapist, because I thought I can't help her, but I'd like to help other kids who are just sort of miserable about exams and seem miserable about life, but won't talk about it, won't open up about it at all. And you all know how I feel about social media. I think there's got to be another way than just social media, because I think there's a lot of parents like me that don't want to be using social media and actually don't trust people on social media, however much you put out there. And so I think, I did write down some ideas and then I can't remember where I've written them. I think I've found that just chatting to people, and I know we've been locked down a lot and we haven't seen people, but if you can find out who is in charge in the schools of the sort of mental well-being for the teenagers, and then I've found that I've managed to approach them outside of school. And I haven't had any leads from it yet, but I have. So I've got a friend, for example, who works as it's not called a secretary anymore, is it? What's it called? I don't know, whatever, in an office in a school. And I said to her, look, who's in charge of your special needs or the mental well-being of the kids? And she said, oh, it's so-and-so. I said, if I sent you a sort of synopsis of what I do and how I can help, would you pass it on? She said, yeah, sure. And she passed it on, and then she emailed me back. She said, actually, so she's just suggesting to a parent right now to contact you. They didn't contact me, I might add, but I just feel there are other ways to contact schools, not going direct to the school. And things like, again, maybe not when we were in lockdown, but the sort of girl groups. So the one that springs to mind is Girl Guides, but there are other groups, and you could go and do a demonstration with them of what you do or how you could help. And I think sort of the face-to-face, making yourself known as a real person rather than somebody behind all these social media platforms is a way forward.
Brilliant. Okay, Emily, thank you. Really like that. Super. I'm going to move. Verna's had to go. She's sent me a message to say the noise of the builders is too distracting. So, Paula, you're next up.
Yeah, I think, well, there are a lot of great things already said. I think it is a bit a tricky situation because on one side, you want to reach the teenager. So when I think back as well, what Joe was saying is, as a teenager, I used to like to do the quiz and fill them out. And I think they like it short and sharp, you know, just something really what gets their eye, their attention, you know, short and sharp, something which could help them, like a quote or something. But it is as well the parents, you know, because like, you know, having teenage children, you know, if they in the end want to go to a therapist and see someone, it has to go through the parents, you know. So you need somehow something what gives the parents also the trust. So when the teenager comes and say, hey, actually, you know, this is something I would, or the person they trust, you know, this is a person I would like to see, the parents also has to trust you. So it is a bit like, you know, and they're in the end the ones who are paying, you know, it's not the teenagers who are paying, it's the parents. So yeah, I think as well, like the thing with schools and somehow getting into schools and another platform, but also being on social media, talking to both, you know, short, sharp to the teenager, but more so, I think I would go to the parents, you know, because often what I find when I have young adults coming, that it's often that somehow some family member suggested, why don't you go and try this, you know, and then the teenager said, yeah, let's have a chat, you know. So I don't know if it's helpful.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Paola. Anne.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of thoughts. I'm a doting aunt, so I'm very close to my niece's children and my nephew's children. I'm great aunt, and they're all school age and teenagers. Now, two of my nieces are Fragile X, which means they're both on the mild autism spectrum, and they are sadly let down by CAMHS and other local authorities. I think there's a real piece that could be done under the whole lockdown scenario, because those two girls have Fragile X, so they're struggling without the structure that they would have from school. Their brother Billy doesn't have Fragile X, but he's very academic. He's 12, and he's really struggling again, not having as much schoolwork as he needs, because he's getting it all done very quickly. So I'm trying to help him find other things that he could do, maybe through the BBC training or online. This is putting a strain on my niece and her husband, because she's got 3 kids at home trying to homeschool them, and a baby, 6-month baby. So there's a lot of pressure there. You know, Fragile X is one thing which is very challenging, and not having the structure and the contact with other people that they have at school. And I think there are a lot of kids in this position who are really struggling with being in lockdown, and so are their parents. So I'm just sort of thinking out loud there that I think there could be some really good support that could be offered that is about lockdown and the family dynamics within lockdown. So I just want to sort of sow that seed at the moment. The other thing I was talking about, and you mentioned Avatar yourself, Tracy, and totally agree with what Bev was saying about teen language and TikTok and reaching out and gamification that kids are doing a lot on now. But I wondered whether you can identify someone like Joe was suggesting, who would be your teenager avatar, you know, who maybe could help you get the bridging language that teenagers are using, or, you know, what sort of the real issues are. And maybe if you did some work with that person to then have a case study or a testimonial. I think testimonials are really powerful, and it might be with people you've already supported. And I think the more you can tell your story as well, because this is what's brought you to identifying this as a niche, the more other people can really relate to that. So that's the first piece I would say, really, and befriend a teenager. I've got, not in a sort of, you know, a pervy way, but you know what I mean, just so you're in the same sort of space, really. The other thing I wondered was about your podcast, and whether that could be some sort of helpline where people could get in touch or make contact in some way. I don't know whether people can talk to your phone in. I don't know how it works really, but that can often be really helpful if people are wanting to talk or learn, a bit like a radio, I suppose, but to have these key issues that people maybe can put questions in or you could talk directly. I don't know how it would work, but that might be a way of trying to reach people as well. The final thing I had here was, no, I think that's it really. Lockdown, teenager, avatar, and what you might be able to do more with the podcast. But I think the more you can do short video clips on the different platforms and sow some seeds, the more impact that would have. The other thing I was wondering about, you know, in your own local area, I mean, I've got local Facebook groups here and they're very, very interactive. And just putting posts to parents or even people on the parents teacher associations, because they're all parents. And, you know, I'm an aunt, but I take a real interest also in what's going on for children, what support I could help the children in my family. And I often then direct them to my niece, who's their mother, and say, look, these things are going on, these competitions are going on. So yeah, definitely parents, but I think wider family members and grandparents, obviously, to a real interest in their grandchildren. So they're my sort of ideas at the moment.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anne. So, Tracy, I'm going last, so lots said. I think there's a few things I want to build on, really. Anne touched on it, and that's about testimonials. We have talked about this, and I know it's often a challenge in the area that you work for people to give you testimonials. But I used to be the chair for Relate locally, and we found a way to follow up with people a couple of times, because you will know the clients that have had a real shift. You will know who the clients are that think you're wonderful. And they are likely to be the clients that will come up with some way to give you a testimonial. And sometimes we are shy about asking. There is nothing wrong in contacting somebody and reminding them of the success that you've had. And it's likely to be the parents, but I would always have a line in there in case the child is prepared to also contribute. And there's all sorts of different ways to do that. But the other thing that we don't often do, if we're shy about asking for reviews, because we think, you know, it's boastful or all those other things that link into the imposter syndrome, is you can give them some idea of the sort of things that you want to say. So I've had this previously when I've outsourced and people say, can you give me a testimonial? Yes, what sort of thing do you want me to cover? And that's much easier for me to do. Then I can write that in a few seconds, but make me stop in the middle of what I'm doing and go, oh, I need to write that testimonial. It goes on my to-do list and it stays there. So I think you need to think really carefully about, you know, being quite pushy, and I know that's against what you're saying, but you can do that in an appropriate therapeutic way, because you know the people that have had those breakthroughs. On that point, I think when you're talking about the content that you're going to use, again, you know what the breakthroughs are. You know those people's light bulb moments. Those are the little golden nuggets that you need to make sure are in your content, because they're likely to have resonance with other people, because we all think we think individually, but of course we don't. We're all thinking the same sorts of things all the time. I think the challenge is that we're in lockdown and we're all trying to do business in a way that will be different perhaps than we would normally when we were able to go out and see people and get face-to-face and build that relationship. So building that know, like and trust is a challenge, but I think you do have to do that. And I think, you know, something like Joe said, that there will be young people who are prepared to get involved in something like this. You know your own clients. Do you think there'd be anybody that would go, yeah, actually, you know, they all like to have their 5 minutes of fame, many of them. They would be prepared to do a little video that you could use in a clip or something on social media that will make a difference. And everybody has said you've got 3 different audiences. I think you're right. I think the challenge for you is being very clear when you've got that overall plan about how you're going to do things and link things through, which is right, is feeding those different audiences. But there are ways to do that. But talking to that particular avatar in that particular platform may well work. I think in LinkedIn, you know, and this is the challenge that we've all got if we want to use social media now, is that actually going into yet another platform when you're very active and it's working well for you is a challenge, and you've got to think about how you can do that. But your plan to have, you know, your month of subject and different areas that you're using that, I think works just as well to go into LinkedIn. And I think you can do that probably without any additional work. I love what Joe said about the lead magnet. I think that's really important, that people have got somewhere to learn more. And I've got an imposter syndrome one. So you give me your email address and you get the A to Z in a little ebook. But the quiz is great, isn't it? Because that way you can actually target some of the things that find out what people are wanting. And if you're linking that into that MailChimp list that is segregated, then you really can follow up with the right sort of emails, because that's what you will have to do in this current climate, is get into sending those emails to people, because they're warm and you've got to get them really hot to part with their money. Talking, you know, now there's lots of places to do talks, even online. That message to parents, women's group, I would have thought particularly, and you know your subject well enough. It's not about maybe doing meditations with people. It's more about, this is the sort of thing I can do. This is some tips I can give you to actually deal with some of the issues you've got with your teenagers now. And you give them 2 or 3 really good tips. So yes, you've got an amazing story, but I think lots of the time people want to listen to talks. It's a bit more uplifting, but actually you're getting in there some of the stuff that they really need to work with their teenagers, or somebody like Anne and Annette who've got godchildren and nieces and nephews. It's not just the teenagers. You know, most of us have got somebody in our sphere that we think, you know what, I'm a bit worried about them. That's a really good idea. And finally, I think is sometimes we're not always good at looking at where have our best clients come from? Where did we get them from? And I think it's great if you're getting clients off Instagram, and it does take a long time. We don't get them overnight. We know that. This whole process of social media takes a long time to build up. It's not going to rarely happens overnight. If you know what worked, then replicate it. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. If it's worked before, it's likely to work again. There are a couple of things in the chat also, which I will download and send on to you to make sure that you've got. Okay, I'm done. Has that sparked anything that anybody's desperate also to say to Tracy? Are we all okay? No. Tracy, Bev.
Well, the gamification thing, one of those buzzwords, but kids and teenagers love the idea that it's a game because it takes away the pressure on them. So if you can find a way to do that, or collaborate, or create something where it's not so formal, I think teenagers will take a lot of notice of it. And a lot of teenagers are at home with their parents at the moment. So it's finding that thing that they can all do together that sparks those conversations. I think it's just what I wanted to clarify on gamification.
Brilliant. I think creating a board game might be just a step too far, but I like the idea, thinking outside the box. And yeah, there's some great stuff on the chat about testimonials too. Tracy. That was a bit stupid, wasn't it? I just muted myself and started talking. Tracy, I hope you don't feel overwhelmed by all of this. Just an opportunity now, not to get into I've tried that, it doesn't work, and the back and forth bit, but just any particular thoughts that you want to share before we go on and have a general chat.
I'm just going to go through, because I wrote everybody's name down. I just want to go through the thing. Yeah. It's very overwhelming, all the social media, I'll say, because, you know, I also do believe that you can't do everything. You have to choose where you're going, and I've chosen. So I'm not going to do the TikTok thing. And I've decided that because I can't take another thing on. And the reason why I don't do, I'm not finding excuses for myself or justifying to the people like Bev that said, it's because I do believe that my top priority avatar is the parent. because, you know, the thing is with my approach to therapy is I include the parent in at least 2 or 3 of the sessions with that I'm seeing the child. After I've been through the child, the parent gets included when the child's ready. So I need the parent to be on board anyway. So that's why I don't think I'm going to be doing the TikTok, because I can't be doing that as well. And then, yes, I had some really nice ideas. And, you know, I don't think a lot of children listen to podcasts anyway. So my podcasts that I started doing are specifically focused on parents. The testimonial thing, it's really tricky because I have to protect my client. And, you know, they might just feel guilty and say yes when I ask them to do a video or something. And that can open them up for more vulnerability and put them in a very vulnerable position. They're only children. So I can't really, I don't think I feel safe. I think that would be really breaking the protection and the safeguarding of the client. So I wouldn't be able to do that. But yes, it would ideally work for an adult, maybe, if an adult was my client or parent, but then the parent is also exposing their child. So it's really very, very difficult. And you don't want to start getting all technical and blurring out the head and changing the voice and all that.
And I think, you know, this is, there is no need for you to go through all of this and offer your opinions. I think it's more about you reflecting on it later and pick out what works for you and what doesn't. And a bit like Mr. Smith, really, there might be something, as long as you've captured it, there might be something there in a month's time, in 6 months' time, in a year's time that you think, oh, you know, I'm in a position to do that, or maybe I can try this differently. Is that all right? Yes. Has it been helpful to you, Tracy?
It has been helpful. It's interesting to see how you all think, you know. And as I say, I'll take what I think will work, and I'm really grateful for everybody's input. It's really been good.
Excellent. Tracy, I'm really grateful to you for putting yourself in this position, because sessions like this always need somebody to have a conversation. They don't have to be in as much detail as that, because we can have a very swift blast of ideas. So I'm just going to ask now, because it's just 1 o'clock, so we've done an hour. And I'm not going to drag these sessions out. I'm going to say a little bit parish notice wise at the end. But if anybody's got anything very swiftly that they want an idea and some ideas about, wave at me and you can get an opportunity now to have some thoughts from others. But I do realise that, you know, that might put people, yeah. Jo, go.
Unmute myself, it's always helpful. Yeah, okay, so this is something I've been having a conversation about this morning. We've found ourselves incredibly busy at the moment, which is awesome, but there's a massive but at the end of it. When that stops, yeah. So I'm really, really aware that I have to eat my own, whatever you want to call it, as I've just been talking to Tracy about content, and get content out there. But I'm struggling with the hours that I was working anyway, which aren't like full days, and then homeschooling, and trying to find someone who can do content in our niche, which is now a real niche of fintech. So I'm just putting out there, if anybody knows anybody who works in a fintech market or, excellent, is able to write content around that could help me, just give me some help, give me some details, have a conversation with me after. I'm really, really interested. Thanks, Bev.
Do you want to say anything, Bev?
I'm just going to say, one of the things to do is reuse what you've got. You've got post, schedule it. Some things you can actually schedule to go out once a month, because not everybody's going to see it the first time, the second time. Yeah. Share other content, so just pull blogs off from other people's content and share that as an idea. I'm actually doing a lot of work with a fintech company at the moment, and they're doing a lot of content writing, so you and I can have a conversation about that.
Brilliant. Yeah,
right.
Cool, thank you.
Well done, Bev.
I am scheduling stuff, and I've just taken on a social media person. to do content for me for the next 3 months, but I've got specific stuff. I just want so much of it so I can start to do the lead magnets that I spoke about,
Yeah.
do the email funnels to start to get a fat pipeline for when we do dry up a bit, which, you know.
Take blogs, turn them into videos, break them down into 3 parts so that you've got social media posts. If it's a video, transcribe it into a blog. Then when you've got that, take all the audio out and it's an audio podcast. So out of 1 blog, you've got almost 10 pieces of content.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yes, we definitely talk.
I mean, the other thing I think Bev's already touched on, you know, I'm signed up to all sorts of different people because, you know, we all get ideas from all over the place, and a very well respected newsletter came through. I clicked a link within the blog and it went to the original piece, and they put in their source, but they'd rewritten it. I would have said not very well. If I was rewriting it, I'd have done it even better. But, you know, that is an accepted format for writing blogs, is getting other people's stuff and putting your own spin on it.
And there's no police out there that police that kind of shit.
Well, obviously,
that's what I'm very aware of, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Editing where it came from originally, and then you're just either replying to it or taking it into, so as long as you've got the original piece where it came from, it's perfectly accepted. But actually they love that because they've got people looking at their
That's right.
stuff.
That's exactly it. And this piece I read, they used the same photo within the article, not the header of the article, but they used the same photo and put the credit under there. And, you know, that is an accepted form of writing blogs and getting links backwards and forwards with other people. And so many of us, and I think a lot of it comes from the photos and using photos and, you know, Getty Images chasing after people for thousands of pounds. But if you're giving a credit, and you know yourself that you're not going to write exactly the same thing.
No,
but there are few original thoughts around here with what's going on internet wise. So it's about, you know, your spin on it at the end of the day.
Okay.
So there are other companies that are in your space doing your thing, you know, in the fintech world, there'll be blogs, there'll be all sorts that you can use. I know a content writer, so I'll speak to her to see whether she has any experience in your field. And if she does, I'll let you know.
And can you drop me the name of the person who does Teams as well, that you know? Because
her
name, and I might want some training on that.
Yeah, let me just write those 2 things down to make sure I don't forget them.
Thank you.
Linda PH and Helen Lee Content. Right. Anybody else got anything that they want some support with at this point? I'm not going to drag us out for any reason other than just to be here and see all your lovely faces. Okay. Have we found that helpful? That's a bit of a closed question, I know. I should actually say, what did you find helpful about it? My plan is to do something like that maybe every other month. So from a members club perspective, there will be a course or some resource put into the members club that you will get from me, a note to say how to access it. I don't expect you to keep clicking across to the training platform to look for stuff. But a bit like this, if Tracy's happy, and I'll chat with her afterwards, this recording I'll just pop into the members club. There are only members that are going to see it. And these sorts of calls, I think we'll keep them in there just for a few months, and then we'll replace them because we don't want a whole load of videos of other people. But I honestly believe that this sort of thing is really helpful to other people. It's a bit like those of us that are on the social media challenge. Not all of it was benefit, but you're going to get a golden nugget. And I got 2 or 3. There's a 3-hour video there. I'm going to cut it down to 1 hour, just the stuff that the PR girls were talking about. And I think that can be helpful for people to come to. So we will have a conversation every month, my plan. But you know me, Shining Bright Objects might be another plan in a few months' time. We'll have a conversation every month, which will be focused on whatever the course or resource that has gone into the platform that month. Please, if I am doing a confidence course that I'm really enjoying, it's my bag, I love it all, and it, you know, there's quite a few modules to it. I do not expect you to sit there and go through it all and, you know, come along on a call where we're going to have a confidence conversation and have done it all. Because I know everybody's up against it, and I know, you know, there's a lot of us spending a lot of time on the computers and don't particularly want to. And having discovered dance, I certainly don't want to either. So there is no expectation that you will have gone through the courses that there. If you never do, you know, I don't mind. I'm not going to get upset. In fact, I don't even know. There is no way for me to tell whether you have or you haven't. There's a way for me to tell how many YouTube videos have been viewed, but I still don't know who's done it. So please don't worry about that. The resource is there. It will always be there while you're a member. We will have that conversation. I want to get some masterclasses, a bit like the power hours we used to have, but I want to, you know, go outside of our network and look for other people that we might not come across to just give us some training, a video that we can watch, webinar style. You can ask questions at the end. And again, that will be kept there for you to see. And I am slowly going to build up a whole load of resources because my niche is really about people that are starting businesses or new businesses, of resources that will be helpful to them too. That's about all that I want to say, other than the next dates that we've got, and again, there will be follow-up email, is Wednesday the 10th for our meeting that will be about confidence. And then the 23rd for our conversation like this, that will be a webinar or a mastermind or whatever. Can I just ask those of you in the room now, do those times work for you? So a morning call and then a lunchtime one like this? Mixing it up okay? Cool.
10th, you got a workshop, Bev.
You got a workshop, have you, Bev, on the 10th?
You're muted.
You're muted, Bev. You're muted, Bev. I get the sense.
Sorry, I'll just say that date, the 23rd, Pal, has been moved because the client I'm working with on that was faffing about, so we've moved it into March. So we're
No,
all right.
the 10th, not the 23rd.
Oh, the 10th.
On the 10th, I got here 10 o'clock workshop.
I've got a visibility workshop on the 10th. What time's yours on the 10th?
9 till 10.
Mine's 10 till 11. So it might be a good follow-on.
Yes.
And that's an outside guru, digital marketing guy who's going to talk about visibility and content and making
Cool.
life easier. So
all right then.
yeah.
Let's see if we can make that
Roll up.
follow up. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
I just want to say, I thought it was really helpful. It was really, I think, even, you know, if it is about someone else talking, you know, there is a lot of learning for me as well going on.
Good.
I mean, I would really like to have that more often than every 2 months. I think,
Okay.
yeah, so I think it's a great session.
Well, I mean, I don't have any problem with that, that we can put in a call for an hour to do something like this. All I need is people to say, yes, I want some help. I agree with you. I think it's really helpful. I think it helps all of us focus our minds. But I do need the volunteers to put themselves in that position, and we can do it just for an hour because, you know. Okay, you're next then, Paola, are you?
What did I say?
Yeah? I think so. I think, Paola, you should be next. So that's you, Dan.
I will be.
23rd of February. Paola's in the chair. What do we think? Excellent.
Now, when you're doing your webinar, are you going to do it on that date rather than the 10th?
The 10th is the
Sorry,
confidence
right.
course, yeah. The Tuesday lunchtimes is the call like this.
Right, I'll
Yeah.
be there for that one.
Good. And can I reiterate, one-to-ones, I'm open to one-to-ones if people want help. I've had one-to-ones with a number of you, and we've got to put one in when you've got a bit of space. We've talked about, done one with Tracy. Please contact me. Paola, yeah? Let's find some dates because that's what you're paying your membership for. So feel free to give me a shout and we'll sort something out. Okay? Right, we all energized for our day? Or
Yes.
what's left of it? Yes.
Very much. Yay!
Super. Love you all. I love Bev's frantically waving muted. Right. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you very soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.